Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We have a bonus episode this week. For those who don't know, Marvelous just did their 2023 game showcase Thursday night. It flew completely under my radar. I didn't even hear anything about it until after people were going nuts about what they saw in, on the various subreddits that I follow yesterday during work, and I didn't have time to do it last night, so we are recording it this morning. I'm going to put it up live as soon as I get done with this. So, we're going to take a look at that showcase. There's already, from what I've read, going to be some great things to look at for this channel, specifically Rune Factory and Story Seasons. But you know what? I love Marvelous. We'll take a look at all of what they got. But first, couple announcements. We have finally broken 100 subscribers over the last week. Between when I recorded our last episode that went live on the same day that this game showcase did on Thursday, and when it actually went live, we finally hit 100 subscribers, and that may not sound like much when you've got channels that are in the millions, but I remember when I first started this channel, and for months I only had 1 to 3 subscribers, and I'm pretty sure all of them were relatives who were just like, we're gonna support her, we're gonna check that out. No, we're at 100 subscribers now. I've got people who loyally show up to the streams. We're definitely growing as a channel. So we're gonna have a bonus stream later this afternoon, same time as our usual streams. It's gonna be 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific today, and we're just gonna look at a bunch of other games that aren't ones we normally typically cover on the channel, but that we could. So things like Littlewood, Sakana of Rice and Ruin, and so on. Do about maybe an hour on each game to kind of look at them. So other announcements, I post these every single time in the comments, and hardly anyone joins up. So let's switch over to display here. We have a Twitter. Definitely keep up to date with me on Twitter. Chat with me here, as well as we have a Discord. It's a small Discord now. You can see, hey, my was talking here. My work schedule is going to be changing in a little over a week. So that's going to affect my streaming schedule, but not my video posting schedule because I record those in advance. So, come in, join the conversation, get to know me personally, get to know each other, join the Discord. Link is going to be in the description for both the Discord and the Twitter. And that's the same with almost all my videos. There were a few I definitely missed it on. Now, that said, let's get a look at this showcase. For those who don't know, Marvelous is the company responsible for the two biggest series is the ones that apply to this channel are Rune Factory, which we're currently playing Rune Factory 5 on stream, as well as Story of Seasons, which is kind of used to be the parent and it before Rune Factory became its own thing. So two great series. They've also got some other great series that I love, No More Heroes, Senran Kagura, the core games are great beat 'em ups, the spin-offs are kind of like cringy, whatever. Just taking the fan servicey aspects to new highs or lows, depending on how you look at it. But the core beat 'em ups are fun games. So we're gonna take a look at this and see what they announced. So let's take a look at it. Oh, hold up. Yeah, I started in here at 4 minutes just trying to see, hey, is this one that actually has English captions? Because the first one I looked at didn't. It was the Japanese captions at the bottom. Like, I kind of speak Japanese. I studied it, but I'm not like fluent. And I don't think most of my fans are. So let's go find something with English captions. All right. Yeah, like I said, I'll watch this for a few minutes. This is doing Loop 8. Right here, I believe. Which is turn down my audio here on my end. This is from what I understand, it's like a visual novel RPG, kind of the veins of like Persona, where you're reliving the same month in the summer. And so you're like because you're reliving the same month over and over and over, you learn new things and you make changes to what you're doing. So this is one I haven't played yet, but I'm absolutely fascinated by it, and I want to pick it up and take a look at it. Yeah, you can take a look here, like just how big this cast is. Went back a little too far. I mean, this is your cast for this game. This is a good sized cast. I mean, this isn't a Suikoden where you got 108 characters, but most JRPGs keep the cast at, under 10 characters, and this is looking like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, I was gonna guess about 12 and 15. That's a good sized cast for, these may not all be playable characters, but I mean, most, like I said, the Tales series is typically 8 to 10 or 7 to 10. Persona is usually about 8 or 9 party members by the end game, and so on. Like, this is a larger than typical cast. So this is going to be interesting. And again, these may not all be party members. So this is definitely a game that I'm interested in taking a look at when we get around to it. Let's continue. It's Loop 8, so yeah, Summer of the Gods. So this is going to come out later this year. Actually, very soon.
マーベラス代表取締役社長の佐藤です。冒頭に流れたのはもうすぐ発売となる
It's the opening cinematic, okay.
RPG ループ8のオープニング映像です。こちらは仲間たちと人間関係を構築しながら手飼いと呼ばれる敵と戦う完全新作のタイトルとなります。独自のエモーショナル AI カレルシステムによってプレイヤーごとに異なる体験が楽しめます。
Yeah, we've been hearing about that, the unique experience. I'm curious to see how that's going to work out. We've seen games claim this before. Um, Most notably in what was it called? It was the Silent Hill 1 remaster, like Shattered Memories or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, Shattered Memories. Yep. I think that was the one. Where it was like the PSP remake one that's said it was going to use like a complex AI to get into the player's psyche to really scare them, and it's just like the first game did that better, with the just the atmosphere and everything to it. So, I'm curious to see. I mean, AI has definitely come a long way since the PSP era, but I mean, I'm curious to see how this would actually turn out as a different experience for every player kind of thing. But it's a cool concept.
プレイヤーごとに異なる体験が楽しめます。発売は来週6月1日です。そして北米欧州地域では来月ストーリーオブシーズンズあワンダフルライフとルーンファクトリー3スペシャルを発売。
All right, this one, absolutely, we are looking forward to that. That's going to be in September. Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. This is going to be one that the same thing you're going to run into with a lot of these Story of Seasons remasters is people arguing over which is the better one. And I've seen channels like Josh's Gaming Garden, I think is what his channel's called, where I think he's got videos where he's talking about like, here's 5 reasons the A Wonderful Life remaster is better than the old one, and here's 5 reasons why it's worse than the old one. You know, doing a more balanced look at that. But you're gonna have people arguing about that. But absolutely, these are the two big series we're gonna be looking at through Marvelous for our channel until we grow. You know, like right now we're trying to stick to specifically kind of where the two genres of RPG and farming life sit and kind of blend. So even story seasons really isn't one that we're going to cover too much for the channel. But as we grow, we'll absolutely go to adding more RPGs like Loop 8 and, Persona and so on, similar to how Miss Bubbles has hers done.
発売します。こちらもぜひご期待ください。さて、このマーベラスゲームショーケース2023では、マーベラスの今後のタイトルラインナップなど、最新の情報を皆様にお届けしてまいります。本日は現在開発中のコンシューマーゲームの新作情報をお届けします。ご紹介するのは、ファッションドリーマー、プロジェクトマギア、プロジェクトライフイズ RPG、牧場物語シリーズ、ルーンファクトリーシリーズ。
All right. This last one, he's going to be like, yeah, this is a special one. We'll keep that a secret. So, talking about these, Fashion Dreamer. This is not one I've really given a look at. One of the regulars on the stream has been like, "Oh, I'm absolutely looking forward to this kind of thing." She apparently loves these kind of fashion designer games, so we'll take a look at that absolutely when this comes up. Project Magia. I've heard great things about it, but I'm trying to remember what the heck it is off the top of my head. Let's take a look if we can see what we can find out. Project Magia. Yeah, so they're still like just we haven't told us a whole lot. This is like yeah, Fairy Tale and Eden Zero artists and stuff like that. Yeah, Marvelous Showcase. Now they've talked about Project Magia before. I've heard this name around. And for those who are just like, wait, what the heck is Project Magia? That's a terrible name. This is not going to be these are not the final names of the games. These two. These are like they just, project titles. We're going to see later on one of the Rune Factory ones they've got is called Project Dragon, I think it is. And that's not going to be the final release title. It's just like it's a Rune Factory type game with Project. So like if you look at CD Project Red, they're talking about like their new games in both the Cyberpunk and Witcher series, and they've got them just as Project this like um the DLC that's coming out soon for Cyberpunk 2077, Ghosts of Liberty, it was just known as Project Liberty, I believe. So that's just kind of the in-house name until that they call it by as they develop it. So no, this is not going to be called Project Life is RPG. This is just kind of it's the project. This is kind of the basis of what we're going to do with it, and we're going to go with this.
そして最後に、これはまだ秘密にしておきましょう。ぜひ最後までお付き合いください。
佐藤さん、佐藤さん、今日一緒にこの動画をナビゲートしていく天の声です。よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。ちなみに天の声さんはゲーム好きですか？
もうめっちゃ
That voice. I know that voice. What is he voice? Let's take a look. Yeah, he's a voice actor. That's not the one I wanted. I don't think that's him either. Anyways, no, he sounds familiar. I know I've heard his voice act somewhere, but I'm just trying to draw a blank on where what he does.
大好きです。今日は気になったことをいろいろ聞いちゃいますね。
He sounds like um in a lot of games, like the perverted character, like the oh, I'm that creepy pervert. If you're familiar with a lot of the Compile Heart games, you know, over here in the West, we've got, was it Seven Pirates, Moeru Crystal, Moeru Chronicles. Those all have like a shared character across them who's this weird seal looking thing. And I think he voices that thing, you know. Don't
はい、
you dare knock my
どんどん
heart.
聞いてください。この動画では、開発陣が作品に込める思いをテーマに、各作品の魅力を掘り下げていきます。ご覧いただければ、より深くゲームを楽しめるようになるはずです。それでは、早速参りましょう。マーベラスゲームショーケース2023スタートです。
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that they're not revealing anything like mainline Senran Kagura. I think after reflections, they're like, oh, geez, this is and like Peach
はい、
Ball
新ソフィア代表取
that they're
締役
stepping
社
off of
長
that.
の吉田修二です。今日はよろしくお願いします。ファッションドリーマーの魅力を一言で表すとしたらこちらです。共に遊ぶと書いて共有です。
That's not one word.
共有、面白い言葉ですね。まずはファッションドリーマーがどんな雰囲気のゲームになるのかこちらをご覧ください。
Yeah, this is like the RPG where you like help people find their style and all that, or something like that. I don't know if it's an RPG is the proper term for it, but like you get gate locked behind like so many style points as you try to fashion up everyone. Yeah. I don't know that this is a game I would play, but like I said, I got a
このゲームは
member on our
仮想
street
空間
who
イーネで
absolutely loves
夢のフ
this.
ァッションインフルエンサーを目指すプレイヤーの変身願望をどこまでも叶えてくれる新しいゲームです。新ソフィアさんといえばキャラクターメイクの面白さで多くのファンから支えられてきたいわばファッションゲームのスペシャリストですよね。ありがとうございます。でもこのファッションドリーマーはこれまでとは違う全く新しいゲーム体験になるので、最初にマーベラスさんに持ち込んだ時にはどんな反応が返ってくるのかとドキドキしていました。そうですか？全然そんな風に見えなかったですよ。でも佐藤さんにとても快く面白いねと言っていただいて、ここまで時間をかけて新しい面白さを作り上げることができました。本当にありがとうございます。いえいえ、こちらこそ。もう吉田さんのプレゼンに引き込まれちゃいましたし、何よりコンセプトがとっても魅力的ですごく面白いと感じましたよ。
いやー、マーベラスと新ソフィアの熱い絆から生まれたゲームなんですね。吉田さん、ファッションドリーマーの魅力教えてください。
このゲームではルカットと呼ばれる相手のアバターにコーディネートを提案し合う遊びが楽しめます。世界中のプレイヤー間でコーデが行き交い、いいねを送り合っていくんです。
へえ、いいねってもらえると嬉しいですよね、吉田さん。
僕はいいねの嬉しさは人間の本能的なものだと思っています。やっぱりいくつになっても褒められたいですもんね。じゃあいいねをたくさん集めていくゲームなんですね。そうですね。さらにこのいいねには仕掛けがあるんです。このゲームではいいなと思ったアイテムにいいねするだけでどんなレアアイテムでも手に入ります。
へえ、いいねするだけでそれ簡単すぎないですか？
So
ゲーム内のお金
this sounds a lot like I don't want to go so far as to be like Second Life, but like Metopia and some of those like other like social like you're going around like interacting, socializing through online play with other players, it sounds like. And you know, like, oh, I'm gonna you start out with like nothing and you find other players who have stuff that you like, and so you're like, oh, I'm gonna get the likes and oh, I love that. Let me get that one of those for myself and stuff like that. And it's just like, okay, this is an interesting concept. Um, if you love fashion games, this sounds like this will be really interesting. I'm not a huge fan of them, and I think that Yeah, like with Animal Crossing, I would get bored eventually just from the lack of something more to it. Without a dedicated story or something to kind of keep driving me to keep coming back to it, I think I would get bored and to put it down after, enough time.
のようなものは使わずにってことですよね。それってゲームバランスは崩れないですか？
もちろんそこは問題ありません。アイテムの数は集めきれないほど用意していますし、インフルエンサーになるには自分でオリジナルアイテムを作ることも重要だからです。そのオリジナルアイテムがルカットやいいねされることによって広まっていき、イブの世界に新たなアイテムがどんどん溢れていきます。
それって世界一物をもらって物をあげられるってゲームになるんじゃないですか？
まさにその通りです。いいねというアクションで人と人が嬉しさでつながって喜びをシェアして
Oh, this is
無限に
interesting.
遊んでいける。今までにな
So
い
you
ゲ
basically
ーム
just get the
体験
base
が
item
でき
and
るんで
you
す。
これはハマっちゃいますね、吉田さん。
ハマってやり込んでいただける要素をたくさん用意
Yeah.
しています。またライトに遊びたいプレイヤーもいいねするだけで好きな服がもらえるので、長く遊んでいるプレイヤーとすぐに面白さを
So yeah, it sounds like you'll find someone, you have something that they had like, you liked this dress, but you hate the color scheme of it. You go, okay, I'm gonna like your outfit. I'm gonna take that dress and I'm gonna redo it. And so, the this dress here, sorry, I was pointing at my computer screen. You replace this yellow with say like black and like all the fringe with maybe purple or red and all that, make it like a gothic Lolita looking thing. You're like, okay, I love the
という選
style
択
of
が
the
できま
dress,
す。
but not the colors.
楽しさを共有して遊ぶ共有
And so you're
です
creating
ね。
that as your own unique
毎
dress
日
then.
あの人のファッションを真似しようかなとか、こんな服を提案してみようかなとか考えながら生活するのって超楽しそうですよね。
ありがとうございます。
それでは吉田さん、最後にご覧になっている皆さんにメッセージをお願いします。
ファッションドリーマーは年齢性別問わず皆さんが気軽に楽しめるゲームになっています。嬉しい気持ちでつながり合える新しい世界を楽しみにお待ちください。
はい、吉田さんありがとうございました。
This is literally Fashion Quest the game. It's interesting. Like I said, if you love fashion games, this sounds like this will be a great game for you. I'm not so sure that it's for me. Maybe I'll catch it if I catch it on sale or something like that, but I definitely won't be getting this one release day.
続いてはプロジェクトマギアのご紹介です。石田さんお願いします。
はい、皆さんこんにちは。プロジェクトマギアプロダクトマネージャーの石田武弘です。プロジェクトマギアを一言で表すとしたらこちらです。
新境地ですか？
はい、今回マーベラスがある方とタッグを組み新境地に挑みます。まずはこちらをご覧ください。
かっこいいですね。
ねえ石田さん、この絵ってもしかして？
そう、皆さんもお気づきですよね。あの大人気漫画フェアリーテールなどで知られ、現在エデンズゼロを週刊少年マガジンで連載中の真島ひろ先生にキャラクターデザインをお願いしました。
これは楽しみですね。なんで真島先生にお願いしようと思ったんですか？
はい、今回の作品は様々な立ち位置のキャラクターが登場し、悪役にもスポットライトが当たるストーリーになっています。
That in and of itself is something really awesome. Really good games and stories will do that well. One of the reasons why people will argue about like Tales of Vesperia being one of the best or the best in the Tales series is, about the middle of the game, that your middle arc, your main character Yuri is going through kind of a vigilante phase, and people think it's a great arc. It absolutely is. And for some people, it feels like it just suddenly drops off. But what it really is it helps explore the viewpoint of some of the villains of the game through the protagonist and showing how he starts heading down that path towards like where they are, but then thanks to the party members and all that, stops himself from going over the deep end. that the villains have, and so that I love when you can get that good characterization of your villains. Um, Suikoden 2 specifically is really good with it. Suikoden 3 also does it as well in a different way, where you get the you actually know the villains and their viewpoints and why they're doing what they're doing. And in the case of 2, it's not even necessarily villains. Well, there's definitely character villains in that game, but some of them are more antagonists than villains, and I look forward to seeing what they do with this.
真島先生の描くキャラクターは悪役もとても魅力的ですよね。そんなプロジェクトマギアに登場するキャラクターたちの魅力を十分に引き出していただけるのは真島先生と考えお声掛けさせていただきました。
I mean, these are already some nice looking
真島先生の描く
designs.
キャラクターたちがどんなものになるのか今から楽しみですよね、石田さん。
はい。
Yeah, this one looks like our mascot character, you know, Morgana or Teddy or whatever.
真島先生のイラストを国内外問わずたくさんの人に興味を持っていただきたいと考えています。
それでは石田さん、最後にご覧になっている皆さんにメッセージをお願いします。
真島先生とのタッグでマーベラスの新境地を切り開けるようスタッフ一同制作しています。どんなゲームになるのか想像を膨らませてください。
はい、石田さんありがとうございます。
Yeah, this one there we're not gonna have the ones that are project names. We're not gonna have a big connection to. They're gonna be very short like this, which gives more time for the good stuff.
マーベラスの完全新作 RPG プロジェクトライフイズ RPG です。一徹さんお願いします。
皆さんこんにちは。プロジェクトライフイズ RPG ディレクターの鈴木一徹です。よろしくお願いします。このプロジェクトの魅力を一言で表すとしたらこちらです。プロジェクトライフイズ RPG の文字通り人生がキーワードです。
完全新作ということは今までにない全くのオリジナルタイトルということですね。
そうなんです。プロジェクトライフイズ RPG はマーベラス特有の色を持ちながらも今までのマーベラスにないものを作る、そういった挑戦的なプロジェクトです。
ライフという言葉にはどんな思いが込められてますか？
これまで日本では数多くの名作 RPG が生み出され、私たちは様々な冒険と感動を味わってきましたよね。振り返ってみると RPG は人生そのものと言っていいほどの影響を与えられてきたように思います。
確かに僕たちはこれまでの人生でいろんな RPG を経験してきましたよね。
そうなんですよ。そんな名作 RPG にたくさんのリスペクトを込めながら自分たちなりの完全新作 RPG を生み出していくのがこのプロジェクトです。
まさに Life is RPG、 人生は RPG だということですね。私もたくさん RPG をプレイしてきたので楽しみです。こうしたコンセプトアートを見ているだけでもワクワクしてきますね。
世界地図を眺めながら次の行き先を考える時のワクワク感、手に入れた船で大海原に漕ぎ出す時のドキドキ感、そういった感情を体験できる RPG の原点を大切にしたゲームを目指しています。
では最後にご覧の皆さんにメッセージをお願いします。
はい、RPG を愛するすべての人に喜んでいただけるゲームを作っていきますので、プロジェクト Life is RPG にどうぞご期待ください。
はい、一徹さんありがとうございました。
Okay, this is very different from what I was hearing about. You know, a lot of, like I said, I was at work yesterday and it was a quiet day because, you know, we've got Memorial Day tomorrow here in the States, and so people were all leaving town. Not a lot of people calling the hospital. From what I was reading, it was making it sound like this was going to be a game about how real life is like an RPG, which is very different from what they're talking about here, about how what they're basically saying is that RPGs are a way of life. From what I was reading, it was sounding like this would be absolutely a something we would have here for the channel, like a life sim RPG hybrid. Now it looks like it's going to be a brand new JRPG series, but I don't know much more on that. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. If what I was reading was actually true and it's just not being reflected here, but it's from elsewhere, that'd be awesome, and it may be a game that we showcase on the channel one day when it finally comes out in these ones here, this one and Project Magia. I'm not expecting us to see before 2025 at the earliest. Since we're just at the concept stages with these two, um, we're probably going to be, 2025. Like the ones that we're going to actually see trailers of coming after this will probably be sometime next year, 2024. So let's move on. Yeah, but yeah, 2025 at the earliest, like diligently under development. Maybe 2026. Most games aren't 10 years cycles, but
牧場物語シリーズは1996年に発売された牧場物語から始まったほのぼの生活ゲームです。現在までに30作以上のタイトルが展開されてきた牧場物語シリーズは日本にとどまらず欧米やアジ
okay, let's pause there. The 30 titles is kind of misleading because you have some that are multiple titles for the same game. So let's take a look at this. Let's see, Story of Seasons series. And for those who don't know, Harvest Moon, we called it here Harvest Moon in the West. Like, let's get the obligatory explanation. Marvelous are the developers. In the West, Natsume were the localizing team. The two split ways in 2012. Natsume retained the rights to the Harvest Moon title because it's called Bakujo Monogatari in Japan. So now we call it Story of Seasons. Two different, completely different series. So, like the older ones are the Harvest Moon series, but like, let's come back here and take a look. Da 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 da. Let's see. So like DS Cute, I think is like the female version of one of the other ones. So you'd have some of the older ones where you could only play as a boy, and then they would later release the exact same game but from playing as the girl and so on. So when they say over 30 games, here we go. A Wonderful Life versus Another Wonderful Life are good examples. I think A Wonderful Life was you play specifically as the boy, and then Another Wonderful Life, that's sort of the same one. Um, is where you play as the female character, and so on. So when they say 30 titles, it's yes and no. Um, Realistically, it's probably about half as many titles. Yeah. Still, a lot of games, and of course they also have a lot of the re-releases. We've got, Friends of Mineral Town, I think it is the one that's based on was a remake of the original. And you got the Switch one, which is a remake of the GameCube one, which is a remake of the original, like old school, just original Harvest Moon, and so on. So I don't know if they're counting each of those as a separate game in the series, but or what they're doing. So still, absolutely great series, iconic. This was the parent series for Rune Factory. Both this and Rune Factory were inspirations for things like Story of Season, or not Story of Seasons, Stardew Valley. And when Stardew Valley hit it big, we saw this huge explosion of other farming life sim games. that are very also heavily inspired by this. So this is a huge, you know, game for our channel. We may not touch it as heavily as like the RPG ones, but still huge for us. So let's take a look.
タイトルが展開されてきた牧場物語シリーズは日本にとどまらず欧米やアジアなど世界中で愛されています。プレイヤーは自分だけの牧場を経営し、作物や動物を育てたり、村の人々と交流したり、恋愛や結婚をしたりと自由な牧場ライフを楽しむことができます。また季節や時間の変化に合わせて牧場の風景が変わったり、特別なイベントも発生。時間をかけてイベントや特別な条件をクリアして遊べるなど、やり込み要素も満載です。自然や動物や人と触れ合い癒されながら、自分だけの牧場を作り上げる喜びを味わいましょう。
はい、皆さんこんにちは。牧場物語シリーズマネージャーの中野光です。今回ご紹介する牧場物語の魅力を一言で表すとしたらこちらです。キーワードは体験です。それではこちらの映像からご覧ください。
Yeah, this is such a chill series. Oh, there we got the token black chicken.
いやー、もうこの映像を見るだけでワクワクが止まりませんよね、佐藤さん。
牧場物語シリーズが最初に生まれたのは1996年。ファンの皆さんに愛していただいて
Yeah, 27
27年
years.
間続けてこられた作品ですね。
はい、
I look forward to seeing what they do for the 30th
本日は
anniversary.
最新作となります。ほのぼの生活を楽しみながら動物のお世話をし、作物を育て、そして作ったものを誰かに届ける、その喜びを感じていただける作品にすべく開発中です。
あの牧場物語の世界でまた新しい体験ができるんですね。
そうです。今作は牧場物語が大切にしてきた部分はそのままに、よりどなたでも楽しめる、年齢性別を問わない楽しい牧場体験を目指しています。
で、今までと大きく変わったところはどこですか、中野さん。
はい、特に牧場や自然表現に力を入れています。また今まで以上に遊んでよかった、いい体験をしたと感じていただけるものを目指しています。
楽しみです。
そしてもう1タイトルご紹介したいと思います。
Okay, so that was an interesting answer to that question for me. For the, basically, rather than discussing gameplay changes, which admittedly, it's a farming life sim, you know, getting the mechanics too complicated and all that. But he basically said that what's going to differ between this and previous ones is the artistic approach. And I can absolutely understand his answering that way. I know, I think it was Pioneers of Olive Town when that one came out. People were like, "This is a drastic," something. I think it was that one, but there was one where people were like, "This is kind of a bit of a more drastic shift from our typical art style." And people will always complain about how the art style changes, or do they love it, do they hate it, stuff like that. So it's very interesting that he came up that way. Um, Another thing to keep in mind is the cultural thing. For those who aren't aware, like, okay, here in the West, the Vita was like the system that died on arrival, but the 3DS was absolutely massive and huge. because Nintendo focused more on the gameplay than the presentation, whereas the Vita was built as a system for the high performance of its games, so you could have console level games on the go. In Japan, it was reversed because of the high quality of visuals and power that the Vita had. The Vita kicked the 3DS's butt in Japan. So, I mean, even after we considered it a dead console here, it was still going strong there. And don't get me wrong, I have the Vita. I love my Vita. I don't have near as many games for it as I do for the 3DS, but I have a good dozen or so games for it in physical cartridge form, plus a bunch more that I downloaded on the store for like, classics that I could play on the go, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, um, you know, s- uh, I have for all the like the Persona PSP ports, like a lot of the PSP titles I got ported to the Vita as well. So it's absolutely a console that I don't think got the credit it deserved here in the West, but I understand why it died here. So, but that kind of has highlights for you why he's focusing more on the visuals, whereas here in the West, we're like, well, what are the gameplay changes? Like, I even caught myself thinking, wait, there's no gameplay changes here? And then I'm like, oh, right. So, it's an interesting answer, and they didn't show much with it, and all they said, they didn't even tell us what this story season title is. But now he's going, I've got another game to introduce. So we're effectively talking here two different story seasons games that he's going to introduce us to. And I'm hoping they are actually different and not just like, again, the Wonderful Life versus Another Wonderful Life, where you have male version, female version.
こちらはみんなで遊べる牧場物語が
Oh, this is sounding like a multiplayer one, or a co-op at least.
以前からユーザーの皆様にみんなで遊べる牧場物語がやってみたいという要望をいただいていました。
確かにこれまでの牧場物語といえば黙々と自分の牧場生活を追求するイメージがありますよね。
このみんなで遊ぶというコンセプトは今までのシリーズにはなかった私たちにとって冒険的な企画になっています。
マーベラスの新しい挑戦を皆さんに体験していただきたいですよね。では中野さん、最後にメッセージをお願いします。
はい。最新の牧場物語体験を目指した新作、そしてみんなで遊ぶ新体験、異なる2つの体験を楽しむ牧場物語はこれからも制作を続けていきます。ご期待ください。
はい、中野さん。
Okay, let's go back there. He said, here we go. The bringing modern experiences to the series. He's talking here about the one we were just talking about where we saw the trailer footage going through the seasons and all that, or that he talked about the visual. I'm wondering what he means by modern experiences. Um, is because this still looks like a traditional rural town kind of thing. Is he talking, hey, you're going to have a tractor? Is there going to be cell phones? What does he mean by modern experiences to the series about? That's an interesting question to look at. We'll have to keep an eye out for that in the future. And then, of course, the multiplayer with this one here, we've got showcased in the background. That is interesting kind of things to mention. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on these.
新作、そしてみんなで遊ぶ
Because I don't know what he means by modern
異な
experiences
る
with
2つの
this.
体験を楽しむ牧場物語はこれからも制作を続けていきます。ご期待ください。
はい、中野さん、ありがとうございました。
Now, regarding the multiplayer one, that's also one I'm gonna keep an eye on, because I'm wondering how they're gonna do it. Is it gonna be something like Stardew Valley, where you all share the same farmland and you just have your own like little sections of it? Is it gonna be you each have your own farm that connects somehow to the larger world? Like, maybe there's different plots of farms around the town, and each of you gets a different farm when you start the game. I'm curious to see how that's going to work out. That is going to be interesting. Um, I don't have a lot of I don't do a lot of multiplayer gaming these days. You know, I missed out on doing the multiplayer demo period like week 4 my Tales of Sandrock because I didn't have anyone to play it with. So, you know what? When this game comes out, maybe one of those things that I'll do, and we'll maybe build a Patreon and have a Patreon tier where I can be like, you know, set up a time once a month or once a week or something like that to play with patrons of a certain level, so we can play multiplayer games like this title. But we'll definitely be keeping an eye on these two games going forward. Yeah, this is just diligently under development for this one. Or I guess both of them, so we don't have a release date on either of these. So those might not be
ルーン
2024.
ファクトリーシリーズは2006年に牧場物語のスピンオフとして生まれた作品です。農業や牧場の要素に加え、ダンジョンの探索、モンスターとの戦闘、魔法などの RPG 要素が追加され、現在までに全9タイトルがリリースされています。
Yeah, just a note, we only got 7 of them in the West. Well, no. Maybe not. Maybe what they're talking about when they say 9 is the special releases, because we've got Rune Factory 4 Special and Rune Factory 3 Special, which has been released there in Japan, but not here in the West yet. So maybe that's what they mean by 9. I don't think... Yeah, I don't think there's any spin-offs or anything like that that we didn't get in the West, and I think about it. So I'm thinking that's what they're counting. They're counting each of the specials. So like when we were just talking about with where they said 30 titles for Story of Seasons, I think they're counting re-releases, updated re-releases, and so on as part of their released titles, as well as like again in that case the male version, female version, etc.
農業や釣りを楽しんだり、さまざまな料理やアイテムをクラフトしたり、
Okay, let's go back here so
農
that's not
業や
blocking
牧
your.
場の要素に加え、ダンジョンの探索、モンスターとの戦闘、魔法などの RPG 要素が追加され、現在までに全9タイトルがリリースされています。農業や釣りを楽しんだり、さまざまな料理やアイテムをクラフトしたり、モンスターや仲間と冒険したり、町の住人と恋愛して結婚したりと、ファンタジーの世界で自由なスローライフを楽しめるシリーズです。
続いてはファンタジー生活ゲームルーンファクトリーシリーズの新作情報を
They just ruin it right there and just say it's 2 new titles.
じゃあ前川さんお願いします。
はい、皆さんこんにちは。ルーンファクトリーシリーズディレクターの前川史郎です。今回ご紹介するルーンファクトリーの2本の新作を一言で表すならこちらです。
東西ルーンファクトリーの話ですよね。これって一体どういうこと？
気になります？気になりますよね。はい、ではまずはこちらの映像をご覧ください。
なぜ私の邪魔をする？
君こそどうして俺の邪魔をするんだ。
問答無用。
Okay, before we go on to him talking about this, this is the one that's being announced as Project Dragon. Let's go back to this because I was reading about this a little bit. Someone was saying that it kind of highlights more the combat side and not so much the farming. I think this little bit here, this, I think this might be tied to the farming system somehow. I mean, it looks very much like that. I could be wrong, and this may be just a more combat heavy spin-off, but we've been hearing for months now that they've been talking about a new Rune Factory series or title that is not a numbered mainline entry, and this is what they're talking about here, Project Dragon. So we'll continue on with what he's talking about. But yeah, this I think this little section here where he's doing like the little dance and tambourine or drum or whatever you want to call it, that is the gourd. I'm not quite sure looking at this footage what he's doing, but it looks like it's got a mini game there to like grow the trees really fast. Yeah. And then she's doing something here. Like that, I think that's the watering mechanic that she was just doing. So these may be our protagonists. He may be our male protagonist and she's our female. Which is interesting that they're not blondes, which we've had for the last few games. With him being a brunette and her having silver hair. Which also makes me wonder because we've got this little thing where they're coming at each other. If this is going to be one where Tales of Exilia, where you could choose either the male or the female protagonist to play as, but the other one is still present in the storyline. I'm wondering if that's what this whole little like this bit here where like they're coming at each other is going to be, where instead of like the traditional Rune Factory titles like 4 and 5, where you pick the male or the female and the other is never present. I'm wondering if the character exists in universe one way or the other. Because there are games that do that, and it's absolutely interesting to see how they do it. Another good example, Astral Chain, where you pick which either the brother or the sister that you're going to be. Um, there's other games that do it, but I'm getting vibes of that from this. Since they're both like here coming at each other, so I'm wondering if they're going to be your rival. Like whichever character you don't pick is going to be your rival. And I'm guessing this is for Rune Factory 6. Or maybe this is part of the same little project there. That's a Wooly.
はい、まず一つ目にお話しするのが東西の東の部分、竜の国ルーンファクトリーです。今作はルーンファクトリーのスピンオフに位置づけされる作品となります。今までとはデザインを一新して和風の東の国が舞台となっています。
いやー、驚きました。これ本当にルーンファクトリーって思っちゃいましたよ。前川さん、なぜこれを？
はい、ルーンファクトリーを遊んでくれていた人だったらわかると思うんですが、これまで作品の中でも何度か東の国っていうワードは出てきてたんですよね。
確かに私も東の国ってどんなところなのかすごく気になってました。
Probably the most recent or most well-known example of this would be Xiaopai from Rune Factory 4 and 4 Special. And she's got that much more traditional Eastern, like Chinese. Hers is more Chinese than Japanese, I would say, apparel. But we've talked about it, and so they're saying this is going to take place in that Eastern nation, which I think is actually on a separate continent.
はい。でもワードは出てきてたんですよね。
確かに私も東の国ってどんなところなのかすごく気になってました。
はい。でも今まで作中ではその国に行くってことはなくてですね、 そんな国があるんだよといったちょっとふわっとした感じになってました。今回ついにその東の国がゲームの舞台として登場します。
ということはついにファン待望の東の国の秘密が明かされるんですね。
はい、これまでも東の国出身のキャラは登場していたんですが、その文化に触れるってことはありませんでした。今作ではキャラクターや背景なども和風に仕上げた新たな舞台で冒険が繰り広げられます。
Yeah, I think this is the
グラフ
watering
ィック
can,
もさらに向上してるみたいですね。
or this is the watering
いや、
umbrella in
そう
this
言ってい
game.
ただけると嬉しいですね。キャラクターのビジュアルもかなり変わってスタイリッシュになっています。
これまでの可愛らしい感じからよりクールに進化しているんですね。
はい、そうなんです。またナンバリングとは違った体験をお届けしたいと考えてまして、おなじみの日常、冒険、恋愛要素もさらに進化して登場する予定。
Oh yeah, we've noticed that. We have never had a bow in combat before in this series. This is going to be new. I've never seen a bow in this series. Now, mind you, I have, but I haven't finished or played really some of the older titles. Like I haven't played 2 or 3, but I'm pretty sure they don't have a bow. Um, maybe Frontiers or Tides of Destiny, neither of which I've really played much more than like the first little bit. But
またナンバリングとは違った体験をお届けしたいと
she's
考
like
えて
he's
まし
using a
て、
sword here. That's
おなじみ
we're
の
traditionally
日常、
seeing that
冒
swords,
険、
but here she's using
恋
a
愛要
bow.
素もさらに進化して
That
登
is
場する
cool.
予定です。
I look forward to
内
seeing
藤
that
さん、
how that
今
works
回のタイト
playstyle.
ルは竜の国ですけど、やっぱり竜が関係してくるんですよね。
それはどうでしょう。でも主人公はアースマイトなので、きっと何かしら竜にまつわる物語にはなると思います。
Okay, for those who aren't familiar, every single every single Rune Factory title has some connections to dragons. Or at least the mainline ones. I don't know that Frontiers does. Um, Again, I haven't really played it yet because it's the sequel to 1 and I haven't finished 1. Um, in Rune Factory 1 through 4, you have what are considered the 4 native dragons, and each one plays a major role in each of those titles. You know, so you have Terrible, Aquatus, I'm drawing a blank, and Ventuswell. Let's take a look. Rune Factory, native dragons. Or the Elder Dragons, yeah. So you have, Terrible, Fearsome, Aquaticus, and Ventuswell. And these are like the title they come in. So Terrible is for 1, Fearsome is for 2, Aquaticus is 3, Ventuswell is for 5. We're playing it on the stream, so I'm not going to spoil it, but dragons do play a part in there. You do have the farm dragons as well. And with uh Tides of Destiny, you also have a different kind of dragons. So dragons and earthmates always go hand in hand in every single title, pretty much, in some way, shape, or form. So that they're calling it Project Dragon is, okay, yeah, they're very tongue in cheek, and like he said, I'm not spoiling it. We're gonna keep this, you know, the two are tied hand in hand. That's all we're gonna say. But these are very different style of dragons. The ones in the previous releases, because the ones we have are in already released that we've played and have access to are what he's kind of talking of as the West, and this is the East. The very traditional European medieval fantasy style. And so the dragons take that look. These ones are very, very obviously Eastern dragons. There's no
ですけど、
wings.
やっぱり竜
They
が
have the
関
more
係してくるんで
serpentine
すよ
look
ね。
rather than like the
そ
big
れ
bulky
はどうで
bodies.
しょう。でも
Like
主
they still
人公
have
は
limbs and all
ア
that,
ー
but
スマイトな
look
の
at
で、
this.
きっと何かしら竜にまつわる物語にはなると思います。アースマイトと竜は惹かれ合う運命ですからね。
謎、今までと全てがガラッと変わってしまうってことじゃないと。
はい、いろいろ新しいことにもチャレンジしてるんですが、いつもの恋愛要素などももちろんありますので、多くの方に楽しんでいただけると思います。
いつものって言えば ルーンファクトリーの主人公って毎回必ず記憶をなくしている状態から始まりますよね。やっぱり今回も記憶喪失なんですか？
それも、どうでしょうか。私の口からは言えないんですけど、あるかもしれないですね。はい。ぜひ遊んで答えを確かめてみてください。
はい、楽しみにしてます。
Oh, I'm with him there. I can hardly wait. This looks awesome.
2つ目にご紹介したいタイトルがこちらです。
Yep, that's all we're getting. Rune
こ
Factory
ちらは
6.
これまでのルーンファクトリーシリーズの正当な続編になります。西の大陸アドネアを舞台に
Okay. The western continent of Adonea, he's making it sound here, the way the phrasing here makes it sound like is, oh, we're going to a whole new continent. No, this is the continent that all the mainline titles prior have been on. The biggest two nations are NORAD, which is where most of the games take place, as well as the formerly Sex Empire, SECHS, now the Sex Republic as of Rune Factory 5. So this is not a new continent. It may be a new country, probably will be a new country, or at least a new city. But from what I understand, Adonea is the same continent we're from.
西の大陸アドネアを舞台に冒険が繰り広げられる内容となります。
なるほど。先ほどが東でこちらが西、合わせて東西というわけですね。ロゴを見る限り先ほどの東の国とは対照的な雰囲気ですね。こちらもすごく楽しみです。それでは最後に皆さんにメッセージをお願いします。
はい。東の竜の国、西のルーンファクトリー6、東西2つの舞台でリリースを予定しています。ルーンファクトリーシリーズはこれからも制作を続けていきます。ぜひご期待ください。
はい、前川さん、ありがとうございました。
Okay, I have to talk about this, and I'm fangirling. I'm well aware. I know I'm talking more of the Rune Factory than any of the others in this thing, but Rune Factory is A, one of my favorite series, and B, it is the one most applicable to the channel, where it is that hybrid of the farming life sim and the RPG. This is huge. After Rune Factory 4 released on the 3DS, we heard nothing for nearly a decade before we finally, the only thing that Rune Factory fans got was the Rune Factory 4 special port to the Switch. Fans were worried that the series was dead until we got Rune Factory 5. It was in development hell. And it is great to see. I mean, it's only been 3, maybe 4 years since Rune Factory 5 came out at most, and we're already getting 2 new titles in this series announced. As much as people complain about Rune Factory 5, and I will fully admit it has its flaws, it helped revitalize this series, and look at these games that we're getting. We know next to nothing on Rune Factory 6, which tells me that Project Dragon, despite not having a proper name yet, is probably going to be the one we're going to get first. Maybe sometime next year, possibly early 2025. And keep in mind, it's going to release in Japan, and it's almost certainly going to release in Japan first, and then several months later, we'll get it here in the West. Um, you know, some games absolutely will have a international release the same day as the Japanese release. Rune Factory, usually not one of those. As we're seeing with Rune Factory 3 Special. But absolutely, these look awesome. I look forward to when Project Dragon comes out and we get more information on it. I am absolutely going to be keeping tabs on these. I am excited for these games. Let's go see what the last one is. I already kind of know what it is because, again, the news alerts kind of spoiled it. But let's cover the last bit on this and then we'll cover our last thoughts. Yeah, diligently under development. They are keeping tight-lipped on everything.
皆さんいかがでしたでしょうか。どのプロジェクトもユーザーの皆さんに楽しんで満足していただける商品となれるよう 制作スタッフが日々頑張っています。
佐藤さん、制作陣の熱い思い聞けて本当によかった。マーベラス期待できますね。じゃあ最後にメッセージお願いします。
天の声さん、今日はありがとうございました。マーベラスでは今、本日ご紹介できなかった商品も含め多くのプロジェクトが動いています。開発スタッフの増強を図り、内製開発中心の制作体制へとシフトさせながら、今後もアグレッシブに新作タイトルを送り出していきます。ユーザーの皆さんの期待に応えられるよう、社員一丸頑張っていますので、応援していただけたら嬉しく思います。本日はご視聴いただきありがとうございました。それでは最後にこちらの映像をご覧ください。
And there we go. The new a sequel to Daemon X Machina, which we had problems getting it here in the West at first. But okay, that is okay. Let's go. We got to go back here and do some of these Rune Factory because I mean, coming to story seasons, we didn't get a whole. They didn't give us much to work with. Rune Factory. Oh man, Rune Factory Project Dragon is probably the one that gives us the most to look at out of these. Like it's highlighting all of these. It's absolutely going to be the one that we're going to get first, probably next year, maybe early 2025, like I said. But this game looks
はい、ではまずはこちらの映
phenomenal.
像を
Let's
ご覧く
let's
だ
try
さ
and
い。
look at some more stuff here that I didn't catch in this. So we're already getting here. This is interesting in and of itself. Like you're riding a dragon. That is not something that really comes up a whole lot in the Western titles. Um, you have the farm dragons, but it's not like you're not doing battle on these dragons. Um, I think in Rune Factory 4 you can tame the various prior dragons, so you can have like Terrible and Aquaticus and all that. Like we saw when someone was asking about that, if it was possible or not. Yeah, because you can in that game you can tame just about everything, and certain ones you can ride. But this looks really cool. You know, these islands here, like the islands in the sky, that is cool in and of itself. I don't know if this is gonna be like. See if we can back up a little bit. Like each of these here, like each one is its own little place. So I don't know if this is going to be a dungeon later on, or if this is going to be like how the town works, and like these torii gates are actually going to be teleportation things. Like you can teleport from here to here, or wherever where they connect to each other. How that's going to work. This is absolutely interesting design wise. Because we can also see like there's land down here, so these aren't like these might be like up in the sky above a mountain because this is only like a little bit poking out. But we're only seeing hints of it here and here. But there's absolutely buildings here and all that. I don't know if they're gonna bring back like maybe one of these is gonna be the in a dungeon farm for whatever this season is gonna be. That Rune Factory 5 didn't give us. But then yeah, we have this beautiful like here, like I know, like what I said, some of the articles were saying, oh, it's focusing so much on the combat and nothing on the farming, and I don't think there's gonna be as much farming in this. And it's like, no, dude, there's absolutely a farm right here. And like we saw here and we'll see here in a little bit, he's got that little I'm not entirely clear what that is. I'm not yeah, my focus is more Chinese history, like Chinese than Japanese. Like I love Japan as well, and I do study that, but I'm not familiar with whatever he's using that's causing the trees to grow rapidly with that little like rhythm game thing that looks like he's got going. And then she has like replacing a watering can with a watering umbrella, looked like. So we're absolutely gonna have farming in this, and I am looking forward to this. Yeah, here we go. This is what I'm talking about. He's doing like a little rhythm game thing to grow that, and here she's watering. So there is absolutely farming in this. And like I said, like talking about this, the bows. Yeah, he's got a one-handed sword. No shield though. So I don't know if shields are going to be not present in this one, or they're just not highlighting it here because some players don't like the look of them. I'm not sure if this is supposed to, like, he's only using one hand, so this is probably going to be a short sword skill that he's doing rather than like the long swords. But look at that. Archery is included, both for you and the enemies. Like, we've had enemies archers before, but we've never had player archers. So that is going to be a new skill. And then you got the flaming sword. That looks like a long sword that he was using there. But he's still using it one-handed. That's interesting. Like, you look at the size of that sword. You'd imagine that would be being used two-handed, but he's doing it just one-handed. And again with these dragons. And she's summoning a sword now.
君こそどうして俺の邪魔をするんだ
With the petals, look at these designs when they summon these too. Like she's got like this dark black and purple and pinkish kind of crackling that we often associate with like monsters and demons and all that. But when his comes out,
君こそどうして俺の邪魔を
it's got this nice pink, and it almost has like look at these, almost like a cherry blossom kind of design as it comes up. That is cool, and I don't know, like I said, if this is going to be a game where whichever character you don't pick to play as becomes your rival or something in the story. So maybe if you're playing as her, he's gonna have that black and purple, and while you have the pink one, while you summon your weapons or something like that. That's an interesting take, and maybe this is just all from like cutscene power to the max. And yeah, she's using hers two-handed, he's using his two-handed, so maybe those are long swords. I'm curious to see what they're gonna. So we've already seen, like, we haven't seen anything with axes and hammers yet. We haven't seen spears, which are three traditional weapons. We haven't seen gloves, like the hand-to-hand combat. We're seeing one-handed swords. In that little cutscene where they're coming at each other, we're seeing definitely a two-handed sword where they're both holding it two-handed. Um, for reference, the katana could be used either one-handed or two-handed. It's very much like the Western bastard sword, which is known as the hand-and-a-half sword. So maybe that's what these are. So I'm curious to see if they're combining the short sword and long sword skills, or if how the a weapon like that is going to play into that system here. Absolutely stunning. I look forward to this game. And yeah, this is probably the most recent one of the ones that are applicable to us. We did have way back here with not Project Magia, not Life is RPG. Here we go. The Story of Seasons,
それではこちらの映像
where again, he's not giving us a date on this one, but he's already got the footage here. Looking at the animals and the seasons. Yeah, you got your crops looking just very much on the appearance thing. And again, like I said, it's much more like appearances is in. We like to think in the West that appearance is not that big a deal, although people complain about it all the time. But like again, does it look good, etc. Like we argue, like oh, the FPS and the frame rates, and this, that, and the other. And yes, if you can get it to a standard 30 FPS, it works beautifully. I don't need 60 FPS for a game, especially not something like this. But the cutesy style where the beaks are just kind of like painted on. We got the little sheep here that sits down, and then you got the seasons like this is your spring, or I guess, and then here's your autumn and your winter. We don't see a summer like how spring and summer are going to differ. Oh, here's the summer, I guess, or maybe the rain was summer and this is spring. So this is like this one and Project Dragon are probably the two that we're most likely to see first. Project Magia, Project Life is RPG, the other one that he's talking about, the multiplayer one, and
自然
Rune
表
Factory
現に
6. Those four are all going to be ones that are going to be pushed back. Don't expect those earlier. Because those are very, two of them are literally nothing but concept art. And actually, all four of them. I don't think the RPG one has anything but concept art either. Yeah.
以前からユーザーの皆様に
Let's see what we can
みん
gather
なで
from
遊
this
べ
from
る
the
牧
concept
場
art,
物語
though.
がやってみたいという要望をいただいていました
Okay, so based on this concept art, what it's looking like to me is this might be like Stardew's Valley multiplayer where you're sharing the same farm. Like this is your farmhouse, and each of you is just tending a different like plot of land. Is what I was talking about that earlier. So that looks interesting. We'll take a look at that.
確かにこれまでの牧場物語といえば黙々と自分の牧場生活を追求するイメージがありますよね
And yeah, he's talking here
みん
like,
な
oh
で
yeah,
遊べる
fishing with
コン
friends,
セプトは
whatnot.
今までのシリーズにはなかった
So this is an awesome showcase. I'm glad I caught this. I wish I'd caught it in advance so we could do this live when it came out. But man, this is. I'm excited for these. I hope you guys are excited. Let's get going with this. And absolutely look at what's going to come from this. This is going to be an awesome, awesome few years looking like. I know some people have been complaining about some of the newer Story Seasons games, especially after the Natsume Marvelous split. Um, but I think based on what we're seeing with these, I think they're definitely coming back into their own with new titles as opposed to just like because people are like, oh yeah, I love the re-releases, but I don't care as much for the new ones. Like Pioneers of Olive Town did not do as well as Friends of Mineral Town, or like we were talking about that earlier. So for the Story of Seasons things, it's good to see that they're getting their stride with that. With Rune Factory, it's great to see that they are picking their momentum back up because again, Rune Factory kind of died off again after the split. That split between them and Natsume, you wouldn't think it would affect them as much because Natsume was just the localizing team. They weren't they weren't the ones actually making the games, but it still somehow on the development side had an effect on things. It caused Rune Factory 4, Rune Factory 5 to, you know, it seemingly had some impact on the development hell of Rune Factory 5. Some of the Story of Seasons titles that weren't just remasters of old ones. People were like, I don't know if I like that one. The Harvest Moon under Natsume titles are questionable. The best ones are kind of like, it's okay, but it's not Story of Seasons quality. Um, but marvelous. Man, this is looking like it's going to be a great few years for us. I am excited. I hope you guys are excited. I'm about to finish recording this, post it, and again, later today, it is 9 o'clock a.m. my time. In 5 hours, it'll be 2 a.m. my time, or 2 p.m. my time, Pacific time. We're gonna start a stream looking at a bunch of other titles. Just kind of thank you guys for 100 subscribers. I'll hopefully catch you guys there. See ya, and have a good one.